Hi everyone and welcome back. Let's continue section 62 of the Adi Parva. Adi Vansavatra Parva continued. Janmejaya said, O excellent Brahman, thou hast indeed told me in brief the history called Mahabharat of the great acts of the Kurus. But O thou of ascetic wealth, recite now that wonderful narration fully. I feel a great curiosity to hear it. It behoveth thee to recite it, therefore, in full. I am not satisfied with hearing in a nutshell the great history. That could never have been a trifling cause for which the virtuous one could slay those whom they should not have slain, and for which they were yet applauded by men. Why also did these tiger among men, innocent and capable of avenging themselves upon their enemies, calmly suffer the persecution of the wicked Kurus? Why also, O best of Brahmins, did Bhima of mighty arms and of the strength of 10,000 elephants control his anger? Though wronged, why also did the chaste Krishna, the daughter of Draupada, wronged by those wretches and able to burn them, not burn the son of Dhritarashtra with her wrathful eyes? Why also did the two other sons of Pritha, Bhim and Arjun, and the two sons of Madari, Nakul and Sahadev, themselves injured by the wretched Kurus, following Yudhishthir, who was greatly addicted to the evil habit of gambling? Why also did Yudhishthir, the foremost of all virtuous men, the son of Dharma himself, fully acquainted with all duties, suffer the excess of affliction? Why also did the Pandava Dhananjaya, having Krishna for his charioteer, who by his arrows sent to the other world that dauntless host of fighting men, suffer such persecution? O thou of ascetic wealth, speak to me of all these as they took place, and everything that those mighty charioteers achieved. Vaishampayan said, O monarch, appoint thou a time for hearing it. This history told by Krishna Dvaipayan is very extensive. This is but the beginning. I shall recite it. I shall repeat the whole of the composition in full of the illustrious and the great Rishi Vyasa of immeasurable mental power and worshipping in all the worlds. This Bharata consists of 100,000 sacred shlokas composed by the son of Saraswati, of immeasurable mental power. He that reads it to others, and they had hear it read, attain to the world of Brahman, and become equal to the very gods. This Bharata is equal unto the Vedas, is holy and excellent, is the worthiest of all to be listened to, and is a Purana worshipped by the rishis. It contains much useful instructions on artha and kama, that is, profit and pleasure. This sacred history maketh the heart desire of salvation. Learned persons, by reciting this Veda of Krishna Dvaipayan to those that are liberal, truthful, and believing, earn much wealth. Sins such as killing the embryo in the womb are destroyed assuredly by this. A person, however cruel and sinful, by hearing this history escapes from all his sins like the sun from Rahu after the eclipse is over. This history is called Jaya. It should be heard by those desirous of victory. A king, by hearing it, may bring the whole world unto subjugation and conquer all his foes. This history in itself is a mighty act of propitiation, a mighty sacrifice productive of blessed fruit. It should always be heard by a young monarch with his queen, for then they may beget a heroic son or a daughter to accompany a throne. This history is the high and sacred science of dharma, artha, and also of moksha. It had been so said by Vyasa himself of mind that is immeasurable. This history is recited in the present age and will be recited in the future. They that had hear it read have sons and servants always obedient to them and doing their behests. All sins that are committed by body, word, or mind immediately leave them that hear this history. They who hear without the spirit of fault finding the story of the birth of the Bharata princess can have no fear of maladies, let alone the fear of the other world. For extending the fame of the high souled Pandavas and of other Kshatriyas versed in all branches of knowledge, high spirited and already known in the world for their achievements, Krishna Dvaipayan, guided also by the desire of doing good to the world, had composed this work. It is excellent, productive of fame, grants length of life, and is sacred and heavenly. He who, from desire of acquitting religious merit, causeth this history to be heard by sacred Brahmanas, acquireth great merit and virtue that is inexhaustible. He that reciteth the famous generations of the Kurus becometh immediately purified and acquireth a large family himself and becometh respected in the world. That Brahman who regularly studies the sacred Bharata for the 4 months of the rainy season is cleansed from all his sins. He that has read the Bharata may be regarded as one acquainted with the Vedas. This work presents an account of the gods and royal sages and sacred regenerate rishis, the sinless Keshava, the god of gods, Mahadeva, and the goddess Parvati. The birth of Kartikeya, who sprang from union of Parvati with Mahadev and was reared by many mothers. The greatness of Brahmins and of kine. This Bharata is a collection of all the Shrutis and is fit to be heard by every virtuous person. That learned man who recited it to Brahmins during the sacred lunations, becoming cleansed of all sins, and not caring for heaven as it were, attaineth to the union with the Brahman. He that causeth even a single foot of this poem to be heard by Brahmins during the performance of a Shrad maketh that Shrad inexhaustible. The Pitris becoming ever gratified with the articles once presented to them. The sins that are committed daily by our senses or the mind, those that are committed knowingly or unknowingly by any man, are all destroyed by hearing the Mahabharata. The history of the exalted birth of the Bharat prince is called Mahabharat. He who knoweth this etymology of the name is cleansed of all his sins. And as this history of the Bharata race is so wonderful that when recited, it assuredly purifieth mortals of all sins. The sage Krishna Dvaipayan completed his work in 3 years rising daily and purifying himself and performing his ascetic devotions, he composed this Mahabharata. Therefore, this should be heard by Brahmins with the formality of a vow. He who recited this holy narration composed by Krishna, Vyasa, for the hearing of others, and they who hear it, in whatever state he or they may be, can never be afflicted by the fruits of deeds, good or bad. The man desirous of acquiring virtue should hear it all. This is equivalent to all histories, and he that heareth it always attain to the purity of heart. The gratification that one deriveth from attaining to heaven is scarcely equal to that which one deriveth from hearing this holy history. The virtuous man who, with reverence, heareth it or causeth it to be heard, obtaineth the fruit of the Rajasuya and the hot sacrifice. The Bharata is said to be as much a mine of gem as the vast ocean or the great mountain Meru. This history is sacred and excellent and is equivalent to the Vedas, worthy of being heard, pleasing to the ear, sin cleansing, and virtue increasing. O monarch, he that giveth a copy of the Bharata to the one that asketh for it, doth indeed make a present of the whole earth with her belt of seas. O son of Parikshit, this pleasant narration that giveth virtue and victory, I am about to recite in its entirety. Listen to it. The sage Krishnadvapayan, regularly rising for 3 years, composed this wonderful history called Mahabharata. O bull amongst the Bharata monarchs, whatever is spoken about virtue, wealth, pleasure, and salvation may be seen elsewhere, but whatever is not contained in this is not to be found anywhere. Section 63. Adi Parva Continued. Vachampayan said, there was a king of the name of Uparichara. That monarch was devoted to virtue. He was very much addicted also to hunting. That king of the Purava race, called also Vasu, conquered the excellent and delightful kingdom of Chidi under the instructions from Indra. Some time after, the king gave up the use of arms and, dwelling in a secluded retreat, practiced the most secretive and severe austerities. The gods, with Indra in their head, once approached the monarch during this period, believing that he saw the hardship of the gods, and by those severe austerities of his. The celestials, becoming objects of his sight, by soft speeches succeeded in winning him away from his ascetic austerities. The god said, O Lord of the earth, thou shouldn't take care so that virtues may not sustain a diminution on earth. Protected by thee, virtue itself will in return protect the universe. And Indra said, O king, protect virtue on earth attentively and rigidly. Being virtuous, thou shalt for all time behold in afterlife many sacred regions. And though I am of heaven and thou art of earth, yet art thou my friend and dear to me. And O King of men, dwell thou in that region on earth which is delightful and abundant in animal, is sacred, full of wealth and corn, is well protected like heaven, which is of agreeable climate, graced with every object of enjoyment, and blessed with fertility. And O monarch of Chedi, this thy dominion of full riches of gems and precious stones, and containeth besides many mineral wealth. The city and towns of this region are all devoted to virtue. The people are honest and contented, and they never lie, even in jest. Sons never divide their wealth with their fathers and are ever mindful of the welfare of their parents. Lean cattle are never yoked to the plough or the cart or engaged in carrying merchandise. On the other hand, they are well fed and fattened. In Chedi, the four orders are always engaged in their respective vocations. Let nothing be unknown to thee that happens in the three worlds. I shall give thee a crystal car, such as the celestials alone are capable of carrying, the car through mid-air. Thou alone of all mortals on earth, riding on the best of cars, shall course through mid-air like a celestial endued with a physical frame. I shall also give thee a triumphal garland of unfading lotuses, with which on in battle thou shalt not be wounded by weapons. And O King, this blessed and incomparable garland, widely known on earth as Indra's garland, shall be thy distinctive badge. The slayer of Varitra, Indra, also gave the king, for his gratification, a bamboo pole for protecting the honest and the peaceful. After the expiry of a year, the king planted it in the ground for the purpose of worshipping the giver thereof, that is, Sakra. From that time forth, O monarch, all kings, following Vasu's example, began to plant a pole for the celebration of Indra's worship. After erecting the pole, they decked it with gold clothes and scents and garlands and various ornaments. And the god Vasava, in is worshipped in due form with such garlands and ornaments. And the god, for the gratification of the illustrious Vasu, assuming the form of a swan, came himself to accept the worship thus offered. And the god, beholding the spacious worship thus made by Vasu, that first of monarchs, was delighted, and said unto him, those men and kings also who will worship me and joyously observe this festival of mine, like the king of Chedi, shall have glory and victory for their country and kingdom. Their cities shall also expand and be ever in joy. King Vasu was thus blessed by the gratified Maghavat, the high-souled chief of the gods. Indeed, those men who caused this festivity of Sakra to be observed with gifts of land, of gems and precious stones, become the respected of the world. And King Vasu, the lord of Chedis, bestowing boons and performing great sacrifices and observing the festivities of Sakra, which much respected by Indra. And from Chedi he ruled the whole world virtuously. And for the gratification of Indra, Vasu, the lord of the Chedis, observed the festivities of Indra. And Vasu had 5 sons of great energy and immeasurable prowess. And the emperor installed his sons as governors of various provinces. And his son Vrihadratha was installed in Magadha, was also named by the name of Maharatha. Another son of his, Pratyagraha, and other Kusamva, who was also called Manivahana, and the 2 others were Mevala and Yadu, of great prowess and invincible in battle. These, O monarch, were the sons of the royal sage of mighty energy. And the 5 sons of Vasu planted kingdoms and towns after their own names and founded separate dynasties that lasted for long ages. And when King Vasu took this seat in the crystal car with the gift of Indra and coursed through the sky, he was approached by Gandharvas and Apsaras, the celestial singers and dancers, and he coursed through the upper regions. He was called Uparacha, and by his capital flowed a river called Suptimati. And the river was once attacked by a life-endued mountain called Kulahal, maddened by lust. And Vasu, beholding the foul attempt, struck the mountain by his foot, and by the indentation caused by Vasu's stamp, the river came out of the embraces of Kulahal. By the mountain begat on the river 2 children that were twins. And the river, grateful to Vasu for his having set her free from Kolahal's embrace, gave them both to Vasu. The son was made the generalissimo to his forces by Vasu, the best of the royal sages and giver of wealth and punisher of enemies. And the daughter called Girika was wedded by Vasu. And Girika, the wife of Vasu, after her menstrual course, purified herself by a bath, represented her state unto her lord. And that very day the Pitris of Vasu came unto the best of monarchs and foremost of wise men, and asked him to slay deer for their shroud. And the king, thinking that the command of the Pitris should not be disobeyed, went a hunting, thinking of Girika alone, who was gifted with great beauty, and like unto another Sri herself. The season being the spring, the woods within which the king was roaming had become delightful, like unto the gardens of the king of the Gandharvas himself. There were Ashokas and Champakas and Chutas and Atimutakas in abundance. And there were Punagras and Karnikaras and Vakulas and Divya Patlas and Patlas and Narikelas and Chandanas and Arjuns, and similar other beautiful and sacred trees resplendent with fragrant flowers and sweet fruits. And the whole forest was maddened by the sweet notes of kokila and echoed with the hum of maddened bees. And the king, become possessed with desire, he saw not his wife before him. Maddened by the desire, he was roaming hither and thither, when he saw a beautiful Ashoka decked with dense foliage, its branches covered with flowers, and the king sat at his ease in the shade of that tree. And excited by the fragrance of the season and the charming odors of the flowers around, and excited also by the delicious breeze, the king could not keep his mind away from the thought of the beautiful Girika. And beholding that a swift hawk was resting very near to him, the king, acquainted with the subtle truths of Dharma and Artha, went unto him and said, Amiable one, carry thou this seed semen for my wife Girika, and give it unto her. Her season had arrived. The hawk, swift of speed, took it from the king and rapidly coursed through the air. While thus passing, the hawk was seen by another of his species. Thinking that the first one was carrying meat, the second one flew at him. The two fought with each other in the skies with their beaks. While they were fighting, the seed fell into the waters of Yamuna, and in those waters dwelt an Apsara of the higher rank, known by the name of Adrika, transformed by a Brahmin's curse into a fish. As soon as Vasu's seed fell into the water from the claws of the hawk, Adrika rapidly approached and swallowed it at once. That fish was some time after caught by a fisherman, and it was the 10th month of the fish's having swallowed the seed. From the stomach of that fish came out a male and a female child of human form. The fisherman wondered much, and wendings unto King Uparaja, for they were his subjects, told him all. They said, O king, these two beings of human shape have been found in the body of a fish. The male child amongst the two was taken by Uparaja. That child afterwards became the virtuous and the truthful monarch Matsya. After the birth of the twins, the Apsara herself became freed from her curse, for she had been told before by the illustrious one, who had cursed her, that she would, while living in her prestactorial form, give birth to two children of human shape, and then would be freed from the curse. Then, according to those words, having given birth to the two children, and being killed by the fishermen, she left her fish form and assumed her own celestial shape. The Apsara then rose up on the path trodden by the Siddhas, the Rishis, and the Charanas. The fish smelling daughter of the Apsara, in her piscatorial form, was then given by the king into the fishermen, saying, Let this one be thy daughter. That girl was known by the name Satyavati. And gifted with great beauty and possessed of every virtue, she of agreeable smiles, owing to contact with fishermen, was for some time of a fishy smell. Wishing to serve her foster father, she plied the boat on the waters of Yamuna. While engaged in this vocation, Satyavati was seen one day by the great Rishi Parashar in course of his wanderings. As she was gifted with great beauty, an object of desire, even with an arch knight and of graceful smiles, the wise sage, as soon as he beheld her, desired to have her. And that bull amongst Munis addressed the daughter of Vasu of celestial beauty and tapering thighs, saying, Accept my embraces, O blessed one. Satyavati replied, O holy one, behold the rishis standing on either bank of the river. Seen by them, how can I grant thy wish? Thus addressed by her, the ascetic thereupon created a fog, which extended not before, and which enveloped the whole region in darkness. And the maiden, beholding the fog that was created by the great Rishi, wondered much, and the helpless one became suffused with the blushes of bashfulness. And she said, O Holy One, note that I am a maiden under the control of my father. O sinless one, by accepting your embraces, my virginity will be sullied. O best of Brahmanas, my virginity being sullied, how shall I, O Rishi, Be able to return home? Indeed, I shall not be able to bear life. Reflecting upon all this, O illustrious one, do that which should be done. The best of rishis, gratified with all she said, replied, Thou shalt remain a virgin, even if thou grantest my wish. And O timid one, O beauteous lady, solicit the boon that thou desirest. O thou of fair smiles, my great hath never before proved fruitless. Thus addressed, the maiden asked for the boon that her body might emit a sweet scent instead of the fish udder that it had, and that the illustrious rishi thereupon granted that wish of her heart. Having obtained her boon, she became highly pleased, and her season immediately came. And she accepted the embraces of that rishi of wonderful deeds, and she henceforth became known among men by the name of Gandhavati, the sweet scented one, and men could perceive her scent from distance of a yojan. And for this she was known by another name was Yojnagandha, one who scatters her scent for a yojan all around. And the illustrious Parashar after this went to his own asylum. And Satyavati, gratified with having obtained the excellent boon in consequence of which she became sweet scented and her virginity remained unsullied, conceived through Parashar's embraces. And she began forth the very day on an island in the Yamuna. The child begot upon her by Parashar and gifted with great energy. And the child, with the permission of his mother, set his mind on asceticism. And he went away, saying, As soon as thou rememberest me, when occasion cometh, I shall appear unto thee. And it was thus that Vyasa was born of Satyavati through Parashar. And because he was born in an island, he was called Dvaipayan, Dvaipa or an island born. And the learned Dvaipayan, beholding that virtue is destined to become lame by one leg each yuga, she having 4 legs in all, and the period of life and the strength of men followed by the yugas, and the moves by the desire of obtaining the favor of Brahman and the Brahmanas arranged the Vedas. And for this he came in to be called Vyasa, the arranger or the compiler. The boon giving great one then taught Sumanta, Jaimini, Pela, his son Sukha, and Vaishampayan the Vedas, having the Mahabharata for their fifth. And the compilation of the Bharata was published by him through them separately. Then Bhishma, of great energy and fame and of immeasurable splendor, and sprang up from the component parts of the Vasus, was born in the womb of Ganga through the king Shantanu. And there was a rishi in the name of Animandaya, of great fame. And he was conversant with the interpretations of the Vedas, was illustrious, gifted with great energy, and of great reputation. And accused of theft, though innocent, the old rishi was impaled. He thereupon summoned Dharma and told these words In my childhood, I had pierced a little fly on a blade of grass. O Dharma, I recollect that one sin, but I cannot call to mind any other. I have, however, since practiced penances 1,000-fold. Hath not that one sin been conquered by this asceticism? And becoming and because the killing of the Brahmana is more heinous than that of any other living thing, therefore hast thou, O Dharma, been sinful? Thou shalt therefore be born on the earth in the Shudra order. And for the curse of the Dharma was born as Shudra in the form of the learning Vidura of pure body, who was perfectly sinless. And the Sutta was born of Kunti in her maidenhood through Surya. And he came out of his mother's womb with a natural coat of mail and face brightened with the earrings. And Vishnu himself, of worldwide fame and worship of the worlds, was born of Devaki through Vasudev for the benefit of the 3 worlds. He is without birth and death, of radiant splendor, the creator of the universe and the Lord of all. Indeed, he who is the invincible cause of all, who knoweth no deterioration, who is all pervading soul, the center round which every thing moveth, the substance in which the three attributes of sattva, rajas, and tamas co-inhere, the universal soul, the immutable, the material out of which had been created this universe, the Creator Himself, the controlling Lord, the invincible dweller in every object, progenerator of this universe of five elements, who is united with the six high attributes, is the Pranava or Om of the Vedas, is infinite, incapable of being moved by any force save his own will. Illustrious, the embodiment of the mode of life called sannyas, who floated on the waters before the creation, who is the source whence had sprung this mighty frame, who is the great combiner, the uncreate, the invincible essence of all, the great immutable bereft of those attributes that are knowable by the senses, who is the universe itself, without beginning, birth, and decay, is possessed of infinite wealth, that grandsire of all creatures became incarnate in the race of the Andhaka, Vrishni, for the increase of virtue, and Satyaki and Kritavarma conversed with the use of weapons, possessed of mighty energy, well versed in all branches of knowledge, and obedient to Narayan in everything and competent in use of weapons, had their births from Satyaka and Hridika. And the seed of the great Rishi Bharadwaj of severe penance, kept in a pot, began to develop. And from that seed came Drona, the pot born. And from the seed of Gautama, fallen upon a clump of reeds, were born two that were twins, the mother of Ashwasthama, called Kripi, and Kripa of great strength. Then was born Drishtadimnu, a splendor of Agni himself from the sacrificial fire. The mighty hero was born with a bow in hand for the destruction of Drona. And from the sacrificial altar was born Krishna or Draupadi, resplendent and handsome, of bright features and excellent beauty. Then was born the disciple of Prahalada, that is Nagajit, also Suvula, and from Suvula was born a son, Shakuni, who from the curse of the gods became the slayer of the creatures and the foe of virtue. And unto him was also born a daughter, Gandhari, the mother of Duryodhan. And both were well versed in the arts of acquiring worldly profits. And from Krishna was born in the soil of Rititravira, Dhritarashtra, the lord of men, and Pandu of great strength. And from Dwaipayan, also born in the Shudra caste, the wise and intelligent Vidur, conversant with both regions and profit, free from all sins. And unto Pandu by these two wives were born five sons like the celestials. The eldest of them was Yudhishthir, and Yudhishthir was born of the seed of Dharma, Yama, the god of justice. And Bhima of the wolf's stomach was born of Marut, the god of wind. And Dhananjaya, blessed with a good fortune and first of all wielders of weapons, was born of Indra. And Nakul and Sahdev, of handsome features and ever engaged in the service of their superiors, were born of the twin Ashwins. And unto the wise Dhritarashtra was born 100 sons, that is, Duryodhan and others, and another named Yuyutsu, who was born of a Vaishya woman. And among those 101, 11, that is Dushasan, Duhasana, Durmatsana, Vikarna, Chitsena, Vivinsita, Jaya, Satyavrata, Purumitra, and Yuyutsu by a Vaishya wife, were all Maharathas, or great car warriors. And Abhimanyu was born of Subhadra, the sister of Vasudev through Arjun, and was therefore the grandson of the illustrious Pandu. And unto the five Pandavas were born five sons by their common wife Panchali. And these princes were all very handsome and conversant with all branches of knowledge. From Yudhishthir was born Prithvivrindya, from Brikodara Sutsoma, and from Arjun Shrutakirti, and from Nakul Nika, and from Sahadev Sena of great prowess, and Bhima in the forest begot on Hidimva a son named Ghatotkach, and from Drupada was born a daughter Shikhandi, who was afterwards transformed into a male child. Shikhandi was also transformed into a male by a Shaksha named Stuna from the desire of doing her good. In the great battle of the Kurus came hundreds of thousands of monarchs for fighting against one another. The names of the innumerable host I am unable to recount even in 10,000 years. I have named, however, the principal ones who have been mentioned in this history. With this, we come to an end to this section of Mahabharat. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, this is your host, Madhulika Rajahan, signing off. Stay healthy always. Narayan, Narayan.